What makes a leader? What pulls us beyond what we thought was our best and into sustained greatness? Tune in right here with Ron Kitchens to learn how to challenge and change your best so that you can move forward into leading at your highest level.
Hey everyone, it's Shannon Allen on the Always Forward Leadership Podcast with Ron Kitchens. Ron, how are you today?
I am awesome.
That is great. I'm glad to know that you are doing awesome. So today we've got a great episode coming up, but I was thinking about, so we referenced this a little bit on last week's episode, but here recently we had Carla Sones come in.
Yeah, from Consultant Connect.
Yes, and she did an incredible training with our team on Gallup strengths and how you can really lean into your strengths and really hone those strengths. And so just in thinking about that, which of your top strengths do you feel like you've been leaning into a lot lately?
Let's see. My top 5 is strategic learner, achiever, maximizer, and popcorn eater. Sorry, the last one, I have a new popcorn machine, one of these things that you spin. I'm like digging popcorn right now. Love popcorn. And so I think right now I'm very much strategic, which is I'm on the balcony right now. It's rocking it. But learner and achiever and maximizer are feeling like they're in a basement.
Yeah.
I'm not getting, particularly learner, really struggling to get learner in.
Yeah.
Just because there's so much other stuff to do. And but I've got a pile of stuff ready for the Christmas break.
Yeah.
And I'll get a bunch of that caught back up.
That's been my thought too, because learner is one of my top strengths, and I think that's the one that I've been like, man, I really wish I had more time to lean into that. And I've kind of been thinking that too while we're not off, but having a little bit of downtime for the holidays. I definitely plan to lean into that strength.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about something. It's near and dear to me because I really want to learn how to be better at it. But networking and a tribe that really fosters value.
Yep.
And so, I was thinking about networking, and anytime you really hear people talk about networking, it's always from the stance of how do I find people who I can pull from to advance my career?
Yeah.
But I was thinking maybe if we thought about networking as this is a group of people who maximize my opportunity to create value for others, maybe we could really have a mindset shift in that. So yeah, I think that would be a great place for us to go today.
Yeah, no, let's talk about it.
Yeah. So, with networking, and we've talked before about building the right relationships, allowing the right people into your, I don't want to use the word circle because that sounds very exclusive, but, really strengthening those relationships with the people who you can give value to and who help you to get where you're trying to go. So how do we really determine the people that we should be pulling into our network?
It's been said 1,000 different ways and 1,000 different words, but it's the saying that you will be the sum total of the 5 people you spend the most time with, the 5 magazines you read, the 5 most recent books you read, the 5 TV shows that you watch. You become an amalgamation of them.
Yeah.
So I don't think this idea of saying that I'm going to have a circle is a bad thing. I think Jay-Z said something to the effect of, just because I cut you out of my circle doesn't mean I have to hate you.
Right.
I want your family to eat. I just don't want you to take it from my ability to feed my family.
Yeah.
And too many of us will feel sorry for people and will allow them in our life even though we do damage to them. And that's a bit like smoking when you already have cancer and thinking it's not going to be bad for you.
Right.
It's allowing that cancer in to destroy you. You wouldn't do it. So why would you allow people in your lives to do things that were detrimental to your own safety, outcome, success, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, and I've seen when we've maybe had networking events through our organization or just in different places, I've seen the person who can really, really work the room and they will talk to 80 people before the night is over. And then I see the person who maybe can talk to 5 people but have 5 really deep conversations. Do you think it's better to have a smaller network with deeper relationships, or to keep it broad and touch a lot of different people, or are there pros and cons to both?
I think it's most important to be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
So I would much rather be around a table with 8 people for 4 hours laughing and telling stories and getting to know each other than be in a room for 80 people for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my role and job says I have to be in those rooms sometimes, but one of the tricks I do, and I've written about it and talked about it before, is that I always have a note in my pocket that says, here's the last 2 books I read that were interesting. Here's the TV show. Because I get in there and I can't think of any small talk to talk about. I can't think of a way to lead. But if I can say, hey, do you enjoy books? I just read a great book. And I reminded myself with that note that I genuinely liked the book.
That's awesome.
Or here's the book, that we're reading at work as our book club this month. I know the book, I just can't remember it when we're in that situation.
Right.
So I carry a note that said, here are the things to talk about so that I can get through that, because it truly does not give me joy and it doesn't give me energy to do that.
I love that because, I'm very introverted. Well, a lot of people say I'm an introverted extrovert. So I can be an extrovert at times when I need to, but I'm very, very introverted. And so small talk is difficult for me as well. If we want to sit around and solve the problems with hunger in the world, I'm there for it. And we can jump straight into that conversation. My name is Shannon and let's talk about hunger. But most people don't want to do that. And it is good to have those skills to kind of warm up to those conversations. So
when I think of that, it isn't about being an introvert or an extrovert. What are the things that give you energy? Because if it gives you energy, then it is truly authentic to you, and people will resonate with that authenticity. But if it's not authentic, then you just come off as that door-to-door salesman who's just trying to tag as many people to sell your vacuum cleaners as you can. And nobody's inviting that person back.
Yeah, I love that. I really love that. Authenticity is so important. And so when you are, building relationships and you're building out your network and all of that, how do you begin to find ways to create value for other people?
So that's interesting. I had a friend the other day call and who wanted an introduction to another friend of mine who he didn't know, but he knew that I knew him. And somebody's a fairly famous CEO. And so he called me and said, hey, how are things going in Birmingham? And I'm like, oh, nice. And he said, are you meeting people? And I said, well, not enough. And he goes, well, I have 2 people in the community I want to introduce you to. And so would it be all right if I introduce you to this person and that person? I'm like, oh, I'd love that. And this person is a athletic director at a pretty important major school in America. And I said, I'd love that. And he goes, hey, and I also have a favor. Will you introduce me to this person? Here's why I want to know. Great. I love to do that.
Yeah.
Now, if he'd have just led with, hey, will you introduce me to X? I would have done it. But I wouldn't have felt the value proposition of our relationship. And those 2 people, by the way, have introduced me to 2 more people.
Yeah.
And it's this virtuous cycle going on. So I think it's important to do that. I think it's important to understand what other people's interests or important things are. And in today's age, it's so easy to forward an article. I found a great article on higher education, and one of the things I'm passionate about higher education, particularly for people who come from poor and minority backgrounds, because higher education truly is the way to break the poverty cycle, to break 300 years of ills in our country. It's about education, But I'm really worried that men have apparently just decided they're not going to college.
Right.
In the last few years. It's overwhelming to me they've made this decision. But I found an incredible article on that, and I sent it to half a dozen friends who said, you've probably seen this article, but I found it fascinating. Here's what I liked. All of them profusely thanked me and said, here's what I just found that resonated in me, and here's how I'm going to use that. And but I understood what was important to them.
Right.
It's they know that it's authentically important to me, and it wasn't a subscription thing. It wasn't behind a firewall. It's here's something that I think will add a little bit of value to you, and here's why I think it adds value. And those are the kind of authentic things in today's world that are, pretty amazing. Yeah. And it doesn't take, it's just a little bit of thought and kindness.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to be said about being genuinely interested in other people. Yep. Nobody likes those conversations where you're talking to somebody and the whole time they're looking straight past you to see if the person they're actually interested in has walked in the door yet. People want to feel like you're not just acting like you're interested, you're not asking questions to get to the conversation that you really want to have, but that you're genuinely interested in them. So that's really good. It's really important. And so, kind of along those same veins, I think we've all heard or been told growing up, it's better to give than to receive. But I don't think human nature for most people aligns with that. How do we overcome that, looking out for my own interests?
Whoever said that never had Jenny's ice cream.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, they never had a tub of Jenny's ice cream.
Right.
It's better to receive than give that.
Okay, I can sign on with that for sure.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
How do we overcome kind of that human nature that always wants to look out for number one, I guess, and doesn't always want to have that it's better to give than receive mentality?
I guess it's fundamental. Do you believe there is abundance and enough in the world? If you do, then you understand that giving it away is a function of receiving more back.
Yeah.
And that's, it's hard, but we teach kindergartners that. And so if you haven't learned that, challenge yourself to do it. Americans are the most charitable people in the world. And, prove me wrong out there, Twitter sphere, but I'm right. And we give more money to charity than anybody else in the world. And we do so because it's part of our social conscience and commitment to each other. Yeah. In most cases, we do so. We're not worried about the tax deduction and give me a receipt. We do it because it's the right thing to do. And I think life pretty much rewards that. Yeah.
Well, it's the principle of reaping and sowing. That's a law of the universe. Everything that is reaped is sown in some way, shape, or form. So that definitely applies to that. So you gave us a really good practical step just for people who are maybe shy or who have a hard time kind of starting those conversations. But do you have any more kind of practical networking steps for people?
So I think understanding that everyone wants to be seen, and so I have a friend, Warhead. It's a whole podcast to why his name's Warhead. But I have a friend Warhead who's since the time we were high school, Warhead has been the guy who collected autographs and had albums signed by famous musicians, and he's made a living doing that pretty much his whole life. Right. But I've watched him operate, and Warhead doesn't just go up and say, "Hey, dude, I love you. Will you sign your album?" He will walk up, and I remember him talking with Alan Gratzer, who at the time was the drummer for REO Speedwagon. And he said, I really like your drumming. What was it like to drum with Eddie Van Halen? Wow. And Alan Gratzer said, well, how did you know about that? And he said, well, I read it on this thing. It's pre-internet. And they had a 20-minute conversation about what that was like for Alan Gratzer, famous rocker, to be with Eddie Van Halen, maybe the greatest guitar player of all time. And the next thing you know, we had backstage passes and a party and all these things because it was a common connection. Yeah. So look for those. Look for those ways to tell people you're seen. I see you, and I think this is important to you.
Yeah.
And so, in today's world, it's so easy with the internet, social media, and all this to know what people are into. You can follow them and then share things. Gary Vaynerchuk, does an incredible job of pouring back into people and showing his authenticity and how you can be in that tribe.
Right.
And I don't know if I have one on my phone right now, but he also sends out texts if you sign up for it. We're not particularly, Gary V and I aren't particularly super tight, but I get regular texts from him that says, hey, you're all right. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be a great day. Go out and kill it. And millions of people probably got that, but I feel seen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't delete those.
Right.
So find a way for you to see people in their greatness and in their vulnerability.
That's really good. Caring is important. I think that's like just an underlying thing that we see in the world today. Like, it's important to care, So
it is.
So how do you best and you gave a great nugget about sharing articles and things that are interesting to people that speak to them specifically, but how do you, or what are some other ways that we can best use social media to kind of foster connection?
I think looking at that, I think social media and all media, I a year, maybe 18 months ago, I was featured a little piece in a publication, and I got a really nice note from Dick DeVos, who I know some. Dick was the family behind Amway. His wife Betsy was former education secretary, and I got this really nice note that said, "Ron, so proud for you of the things you're achieving on behalf of others." And just as somebody who I know is incredibly busy, who has wealth beyond imagination, in his own hand wrote me a note, stuck in an envelope, and I felt and feel incredibly seen.
That's awesome.
And I know from others that he does that. That's kind of his thing.
Yeah.
And so I think using those opportunities to magnify or to lift up others. One of the things I've encouraged our own team is when you see people who others would say are our competition, when you see them having a good day, announcements are made in their community, things that they're celebrating, lift them up and celebrate.
That's good.
I want you to repost it. I want you to give them a shout out, because their being great has nothing to do with our performance.
Right.
So why wouldn't we want our friends or our competition, although I don't believe they are, why wouldn't we want them to be incredible and the world to see them incredible? Because they're our friends. It rubs off on us.
Right. Absolutely. So, man, I really love that. I love this idea of utilizing all different forms, and you do great with this. I mean, I know I help you send thank you notes out a lot, so you're really great with that.
I write them all myself.
You do, yes. You write them. They're in your awesome author handwriting. It's all from you, but and I enjoy seeing the way that you connect with people and how you lift people up, and just using social media and all forms of media to do that, to remind people that they're seen, that they're great, that they can be great, and that the potential that they have in them is more even probably than what they can imagine. I think when people see that somebody else sees that, it really does strengthen those connections.
Yep.
So I guess now with staying connected, so you've built relationship, you've made connections. How do you follow up and just stay connected with people?
So I think that's hard. That for me is not my natural. My Gallup strengths had to be an area that I'm weak on, so I have to be intentional about that. As we say that, just because you're not good at algebra doesn't mean you don't have to get a C in it to get out of college. Right. So, you have no excuse to not be average in anything. So, for me, it's about cyber stalking is the wrong word, but I don't follow a huge amount of people on social media who I don't have a real relationship with, because I really want, with all the algorithms, if I do, then I'm not seeing the people who I really want to stay connected with.
Right.
And I also have Google alerts on everybody who's a friend. Every single person who's a friend, every organization who's a friend, every economic developer in the country who's a friend, all their organizations. So I'm seeing their success.
That's really good.
So it reminds me, I need to reach out, and I print those things out, and I will send myself a note. Hey, email, do something for this person to tell them, because we live in a world where, and we just talked about it, but if the competition succeeds, too many people look at that, well, I must have lost.
Right.
Well, you're not even playing in the same conference, let alone league, and maybe even not the same game as they are. So how does their success diminish you?
Yeah.
It doesn't. Your attitude diminishes you.
Absolutely.
So my attitude is one of celebration and joy.
Yeah.
And I want people to know that I'm proud of them. And I use the L word, that I love them, and I want great things to happen for them.
Yeah.
And if I know that we share the same, faith journey, I'm going to talk about prayer.
Yeah.
And lifting them up in that.
That's awesome. I love the intentionality that you're talking about, because honestly, if someone reached out to me and said, I saw that you did this, congratulations, I would think, how did they know that? Oh, wow, they went out of their way to know that and to make sure that they noticed that about me, I think that's incredible. That intentionality is awesome.
And Google Alerts is free.
Yeah.
Doesn't cost you a dime to do that. And, but, most things in this world that resemble greatness don't cost much work, much money. That cost intentionality and a little bit of hard work.
Yeah, and time. Yeah, for sure. Well, I love that, and I think that's a great place for us to stop for this week. But do you have any other thoughts?
I think just be intentional with your time. We're at the holiday seasons. Time is the most precious gift we give ourselves, we give our families, we give our children. One of our new traditions here at the Birmingham Business Alliance is that we don't bring digital devices into meetings.
Right.
They don't have a place there. If you need to go look something up, step out, look it up, come back. What if we made this holiday season where you didn't bring it to the table? You didn't bring it. If your children are around, your device is put away. You know what? How much does that say you're seen, you're loved, and you're valued?
Absolutely.
And now we'll all get a little twitchy.
Yeah.
But you know what? Nothing's going to happen on Twitter that, you can't catch up on.
That is true. That's true. That's great. So thank you all for listening. Have a wonderful week.
We'll see you next week.
Thanks for joining us. If today's conversation has ignited greatness in you, take your next step and visit ronkitchens.com to gain more inspiration and to connect with Ron. You can also tweet Ron at Ron Kitchens. Until next time, keep moving, always forward.